Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving into a topic I know many of you appreciate. We are talking about gear, the beating heart of our work as filmmakers. I'm Francesco Sangalli, a documentary filmmaker and cinematographer with experience in over 40 countries around the world. On this channel, I share my journey in professional filmmaking. Let's grow together. Over the years, my arsenal of tools for shooting documentaries has constantly evolved, shaping itself based on my style and the changing needs of the projects. Even today, the choice between one set of tools and another depends strictly on the specific nature of the documentary I'm facing. Today, however, I want to focus on the setup I prefer for my travel documentaries, where lightness and versatility stand as absolute priorities, surpassing any other consideration. Let's get started. Cameras. My flagship camera is a Nikon Z8, the same one I'm using to record this video right now. I choose it for its incredible versatility in internal recording formats, for its valuable ability to capture video in 4K at 120 frames per second without any sensor crop, and for its skills in producing high-quality photographs without hindering the flow of filming. One aspect I love about this camera, and I rarely hear mentioned, is its H.265 10-bit 420 recording option with variable bitrate. This, in my opinion, represents a considerable advantage in the world of documentary filmmaking. During interviews, where you usually have more control over the lighting, and it's not strictly necessary to record in RAW, ProRes or 10 bits 422, the variable bitrate allows you to obtain significantly smaller files, given that interviews tend to have few complex movements to record, while maintaining excellent quality. Furthermore, the possibility of recording in native 8K opens the way to recording in 4K with an APS-C crop, thus simulating a longer focal length than that of the actual lens, while still maintaining excellent 4K quality. The ISO sensitivity might not be the best on the market, but up to ISO 6400, the Z8 is excellent, and paired with bright lenses, these values prove to be more than sufficient in almost situations. From a hardware point of view, this camera is a true tank. I've taken it with me over the scorching Sahara Desert to the freezing Arctic, passing through the suffocating humidity of the Philippines and the aridity of the Himalayas. And it has never given me the slightest problem. On some occasions, it has even fallen to the ground and even been splashed with salt water in the Dominican Republic while filming whales. And yet, it continues to function properly. This robustness, when shooting documentaries in extreme contexts, is an invaluable plus. As for the batteries, my experience has always been positive. Even using non-original batteries, I rarely consume more than 2 batteries in an entire day of shooting. The only exceptions occur during long interview sessions, which inevitably require more power. For many, the Z8 might seem like a heavy camera, but if we compare it to cinema cameras bodies or dedicated camcorders, it's not at all. Its relative lightness allows me to always have it with me, ready for use. There's nothing worse than missing a shooting opportunity because the camera is too heavy or too delicate to carry around. Lenses. Let's move on to the optical heart of my setup. I would dream of being able to work always and only with super prime lenses, but in the reality of the documentaries I make, it's often impossible to predict precisely what will happen or ask to repeat certain actions. For this reason, my main lens is a versatile 24-120 f4. It offers me practically all the focal lengths I need in a lightweight body, and with a more than acceptable aperture for many situations. When I need greater reach, as I mentioned earlier, I switch to the APS-C mode of the Z8, transforming the 120mm into an equivalent 180mm, a focal length that, with the exception of wildlife filming, almost always proves sufficient. In addition to the 24-120, I usually carry 2 other lenses with me. The first is a wide-angle lens, a 17-28 f2.8, which makes shooting in tight spaces easier. Furthermore, as the great Robert Capa said, if your pictures aren't good enough, you are not close enough. And this lens thanks also to its macro capabilities, allows me to get very close to subjects. The wide angle, then, gives the sense of immersion that, in certain situations, makes all the difference. Despite its f2.8 aperture, it remains a compact and lightweight lens, with a front diameter that I've standardized to the one of the 24-120, to be able to use the same filters on all the optics. An additional advantage of the 17-28mm is its internal zoom mechanism, which makes it particularly stable and practical when mounted on a gimbal, as we'll see later. Finally, my third lens is a trusty 40mm f2. It's so small and lightweight that it would be a mistake not to always have it within reach. Weighing less than 200 grams, it literally fits in my pockets, and it's perfect for shooting in low light conditions and for interviews. Other cameras. In my shooting arsenal, a drone and an action camera are obviously essential. As a drone, I use the DJI Air 2S. It's true, it's not the latest model on the market, but it still does its job excellently, and its 22mm lens makes it a great complement to the Mavic 3 Pro, a drone that the video operator I often collaborate with use. Honestly, there's no much more to add about this drone. As an action camera, I use a DJI Action 4. I want to point out immediately that this is the only product among those I'm showing to you today that I received for free from DJI when I was creating content for them here in Italy. In fact, the model I own is a display unit. Are there more advanced action camera models available now? Certainly. Can I still achieve more than satisfactory results with this one? Absolutely yes. I mainly use it for underwater shots, for camera cars, and for my behind-the-scenes footage. The ability to record in 4/3 using the full sensor is very convenient for adapting the footage to both documentaries and social media. It handles high ISO quite well, offers the possibility to shoot at high frame rates, and in general, I find it very intuitive to use. However, I believe that, in the world of documentaries, one action camera is as good as another. The crucial aspect, as with the rest of the equipment, is knowing when and how to use it, without overdoing it. Filters. Moving on to the filters, I usually carry an easy variable ND filter from 1 to 5 stop, appreciated above all for its color fidelity. After 5 years of intense use, as you can see, it's quite marked, but it has satisfied me so much that I will definitely buy another one. I also have a Tiffen Black Promised 1A, which I use very rarely though, and following the principle that 1 is none and 2 is 1, I always carry a spare variable ND filter, even if it's of lower quality. Audio. Regarding audio, I rely on a rather basic setup, aware that I'm not a professional sound engineer and preferring not to complicate myself with excessively complex or cumbersome tools. I always have a Rode Video Micro mounted on the camera, which is also visibly marked by time and use. While for interviews, I use a Rode Wireless Pro set. The convenience of the case that keeps the transmitters charged almost allows me to forget about managing the microphone batteries. The ability to record internally in 32-bit also ensures me I always have a secure and faithful backup, even in the very rare cases of external interference. Tripods and gimbals. Speaking of interviews, an indispensable tool in any documentaries equipment is the tripod. I own several, and the choice between lighter and heavier models depends on the specific needs of the project. However, since we are analyzing the lightweight setup here, I'll show you the one I use most often in these situations, the Manfrotto B3 Live. It's not the most high-performing tripod in the world, I admit, but it's extremely compact and weighs less than 2 kilos, while still offering a fluid head that allows for emergency camera movements. In addition, I always carry a Manfrotto Pixie with me, to be used as an emergency tripod for quick situations or tight spaces. Finally, for some moving shots, I often have with me a DJI RS3 Pro. The gimbal isn't a tool I particularly love, but in combination with the 17-28 lens and the Z8's ability to shoot in APS-C format, it offers the possibility to create truly dynamic and engaging images with a surprisingly compact and agile setup. Lights. Let's move on to the lighting and stands. The lights that always accompany me are two Aperture MC RGBs. Their small sizes and RGB capability offer unparalleled versatility, especially in tight spaces. Without them, I wouldn't have known how to light the inside of the illegal gold mines in the Philippines, for example. However, they have a limit. The power isn't very high. For this reason, I always carry a Colbert CL60 RGB with me as well. I prefer this model to the Aperture counterpart because it can also be powered via power bank, guaranteeing me a light source in any situation. I usually mount a small newer softbox on the Colbert, but sometimes I also use it with its reflector dish or with a 5-in-1 reflector. The latter is, in my opinion, another indispensable tool for every documentary filmmaker. It takes up very little space, weighs little, and can be used to modify light even in the absence of electricity. To position the lights, I use these two K&F concept stands. They are not the most stable on the market, but they do their job, and thanks to their particular opening system, they take up very little space and are also very lightweight. Finally, to hang the apertures and use them as kickers or fill lights, I have this small rig Magic Arm. Memory cards and storage. Regarding memory and storage, I use several different supports. For the Z8, I have two CF Express Type B cards, which offer high writing and reading speeds, reducing the time spent downloading footage in the evening. However, I always carry some SD cards with me as well. You never know. As for brands, I mainly rely on Lexar and SanDisk, but I also have cards from other brands, so I don't have a specific recommendation to give you. What I highly recommend instead are these portable SSDs for evening backups, the Samsung T5s. The T7s and T9 models also exist, which are larger and faster. But I'm very happy with this 500GB one. The fact that I have to use more than one for each expedition, separating the footage on different supports, makes me feel safer. In case one of them breaks, I would only lose a part of the footage, not all of it. Obviously, this is never the only copy of the footage. I always have at least a double, if not triple copy on traditional hard drives. I use these, usually 4 or 5 terabytes. They are not the fastest, but they are economical and reliable, and if treated well, they are more than good enough for archiving files during expeditions. Computer. And speaking of storage, let's move on to the next fundamental element, the computer. I use a 13-inch M1 MacBook Pro with these specs. It's not the most modern computer, you can see a theme here, no? But it's powerful enough to allow me to do some editing on the fly if necessary. It's super light and easy to transport thanks to its small size, and above all, its battery lasts incredibly long. Even today, after over 4 years of use, I can do a whole day of editing on DaVinci Resolve using just the battery, without ever having to plug it in. Furthermore, even though many have criticized it, it still has the touch bar, which I find very useful for quickly viewing footage every evening. Having a slightly older and therefore less expensive computer to take on expeditions without the constant fear of damaging it, since the main computer stays at home, is something that comforts me every time. Along with the MacBook, I usually always carry an iPad with me, not because I strictly need it for work, quite the opposite. It's perhaps the only tool I bring with me more for leisure than for anything else. But it can still be very useful in various situations. First of all, I can download all the possible ebooks to read during the trip, useful for informing myself about the issues I'm talking about in the documentary. Furthermore, thanks to the Apple Pencil, I can sign documents or have release forms signed by the people filmed. Finally, by connecting it to the MacBook, I can also use it as a small external monitor to gain a little extra space during more complex edits. backpacks and bags. Let's move on to the chapter of backpacks and bags. All the equipment, in fact, needs to be transported. And since I almost always travel by plane, I always try to keep the most expensive items in my hand luggage to avoid the risk of loss. When I travel, therefore, I keep the computer, the iPad, hard drives and various adapters and card readers in this small bag, which I then insert into a larger bag to facilitate transport and offer a second layer of protection. I put everything else in this backpack, with the exception of tripods, stands and the cold bore light, which will end up in the whole luggage along with clothes. This is not a specific photographic backpack, but I still find it super comfortable. It's 100% waterproof, so the equipment inside is safe from all forms of bad weather. Having the only access through the zipper on the back also makes it very secure against possible theft when worn. With a capacity of 25 liters, it's also small and unnoticeable. To further protect the equipment inside, I always use this other small waterproof bag from Newer. You can never be too safe. Once I arrive at the location to be documented, I then take out this other small shoulder bag, where I put the tools I need most frequently. The wide-angle lens, the wireless microphones, the headphones, a couple of extra batteries, the variable ND filter and the passport. This is the bag I always have on me during every day of the expedition. Whatever happens, I know that by taking even just this with the camera, I will always be able to film everything in front of me. The less important things, or those I might need less urgently, I will always remain in the backpack. Total weight and final thoughts. Adding up the weight of each individual item, we arrive at approximately 13 kilos. As you can see, while trying to remain as light as possible, we are still talking about a significant weight, considering that we have not included clothes, chargers and personal hygiene items. Yet, this is, in my opinion, the bare minimum necessary to shoot a documentary while traveling. Of course, you could do without the stabilizer or the drone. In some situations you can shoot without lights, in other action cameras are useless, and so on. But if we want to build a setup that can work well in 99% of cases, to always be ready to face any situation, then I think that in the kit we just have seen, there is really everything a documentary filmmaker could want during an expedition abroad. On the other hand, if you have the possibility to travel heavier, bringing more powerful lights, specialized microphones, additional prime lenses, more camera bodies, etc., then the discussion changes significantly. For low-budget documentaries, however, this setup I think can represent an ideal starting point. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. To catch future episodes, subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video. Let's keep exploring, creating and growing together.